rivalry. I mean, this is like this is like Phil Taylor and Michael Van Gogh, and this is absolutely absorbing stuff for darts fans. What's it like? You're playing each other so regularly, and you seem to be pushing each other on. You
Yeah, when we play in the hockey, we're not friends, it's just another opponent, and when we come off, then I just kept going. It is hard. It was a struggle of me taking, because honestly, I'd say I felt like giving up sometimes, because people just think, oh, and it doesn't. It's hard work and work back up.
In the world of darts, rivalries aren't born out of hate, they're forged in the fire of competition. And few players have faced more fierce challenges than Lisa Ashton, a 4-time world champion, the first woman ever to win a PDC Tour Card, and a player who's spent decades defending her crown against every new name that's tried to take it. From bitter finals and generational battles to the rising stars who dare to challenge her throne. These are the 5 players who've pushed Lisa Ashton to her absolute limits. Some matches made her a legend, others nearly broke her. But every rivalry tells a story, and together, they reveal how the Lancashire Rose became the symbol of women's darts. Before the rivalries, before the headlines, there was simply Lisa Ashton, a woman from Bolton with a dartboard in her kitchen and the drive most players could only dream of. She didn't come from money or fame. She came from the pub leagues of Northern England, where darts wasn't just a pastime, it was a proving ground. And from the very start, Lisa didn't just want to play, she wanted to win. Her breakthrough came in 2014 when she stormed through the BDO Women's World Championship, defeating the legendary Deta Hedman 3-2 inches, a nerve-shredding final. That victory didn't just give her a trophy, it announced a new era. Over the next few years, Ashton became unstoppable. 4 world titles in 5 years, 2014, 2015, 2017, 2018. Dominance rarely seen in the women's game. Every time she walked onto the oche, the crowd knew they were watching a player who didn't crack under pressure. But what truly set Ashton apart wasn't just accuracy, it was attitude. Calm, clinical, and utterly fearless. She never celebrated wildly, never trash-talked opponents, she just won. Again and again. And then, in 2020, she made history, becoming the first woman ever to win a PDC Tour Card, earning the right to compete against the world's best men on dart's biggest stage. Overnight, she wasn't just representing herself, she was carrying an entire movement. Yet, when you dominate for that long, you don't just collect titles, you collect rivals. Every new talent in women's darts wanted one thing, to beat Lisa Ashton, and that's where our story really begins. Every great champion eventually meets their mirror image, someone younger, hungrier, and just bold enough to believe they can take down a legend. For Lisa Ashton, that challenger was Fallon Sherrock. By the late 2010 seconds, Ashton had already done everything a women's darts player could. But the sport itself was changing, audiences were growing, TV coverage was expanding, and a new generation was watching closely, waiting for their turn. Then came Fallon Sherrock, a fearless young thrower from Milton Keynes whose accuracy under pressure was frightening. Their first real encounters came on the BDO and PDC Women's Series circuits, and right from the start, it was electric. When Ashton faced Sherrock, it wasn't just a match, it was a statement. The veteran versus the prodigy, the established queen versus the rising star. In one event, Sherrock demolished Ashton 5-0 inches, a women's series final, a result that sent a shockwave through the darts world. For years, fans had wondered who could finally match Ashton's dominance. Suddenly, they had an answer. But just when people started whispering that the throne had changed hands, Ashton fired back. In the very next series, she crushed Sherrock 5-1, reminding everyone that experience still mattered. What made this rivalry so gripping wasn't trash talk or controversy, it was respect. Both players knew the other was the benchmark. Sherrock admired Ashton's composure, Ashton acknowledged Sherrock's rising stardom, but once they stepped on the oche, all that admiration vanished. The women's series quickly became their battleground. Between 2020 and 2022, they met in numerous finals, trading blows in what felt like a private war for supremacy in the women's game. One weekend, it was Ashton lifting the trophy. The next, Sherrock. The tension reached its peak when both players made history outside the women's circuit. Sherrock's 2019 PDC World Championship run, where she defeated Ted Everts and Mensur Suljovic, made global headlines. Suddenly, the spotlight swung toward her. But behind that headline, there was Ashton, the woman who had kicked open the door that Sherrock now walked through. Lisa was the first to earn that PDC Tour Card. Fallon was the first to win on that stage. Two different milestones, one shared story. Without Ashton's breakthrough, Sherrock's moment might never have happened. Without Sherrock's spotlight, Ashton's achievement might never have been fully appreciated. That's what makes their rivalry so unique. It's not born of hatred, but of shared ambition. They pushed each other to raise the standard for every woman holding a set of darts. Statistically, their head-to-head record is razor thin. On the PDC Women's Series alone, they've traded wins across dozens of meetings. Ashton holds the edge in experience. Sherock holds the edge in explosive scoring power. Each time they meet, there's an unspoken question hanging in the air. Is this the night the balance tips again? Off the stage, both players have acknowledged how much they owe to the other. Ashton has said she's proud to see more women competing at the top level. Sherock has credited Ashton for proving that women deserve a permanent place in the professional game. Yet that respect only fuels the competition because neither wants to be remembered as the second best. Their matches also changed how audiences viewed women's darts. Suddenly, it wasn't just a side event. It was front-page news, streamed worldwide, with fans debating who truly reigned supreme. Every time their names appeared in the same bracket, fans knew something special was coming. And for Ashton, the Sherock rivalry lit a new fire. After decades of success, she had a reason to grind even harder to prove she could still hang with the next generation. Even as Sherock's fame skyrocketed, Ashton kept showing up week after week, hitting ton-plus averages, proving that legacy isn't given, it's earned every weekend. But while this duel defined a new era of women's darts, it also opened the door for another rising star, a teenager whose talent would soon shake the foundations of the sport once again. Her name, Beau Greaves. And her battles with Lisa Ashton would take this rivalry story to an entirely new level. When Beau Greaves arrived, the women's circuit didn't just find a new competitor, it found a phenomenon. Born in 2004, Greaves was barely a teenager when her averages started turning heads. By the time she was 18, she was already rewriting record books, throwing 90-plus averages like it was nothing, and stringing together unbeaten runs that left veterans stunned. For Lisa Ashton, this wasn't just another rising star. This was a new kind of threat, a player with the precision of a computer and the composure of a seasoned pro. Their first major encounters came in the PDC Women's Series, where Greaves' dominance quickly became the story of the 2020s. In 2022, she won an astonishing 8 consecutive Women's Series titles, a feat no one, not even Ashton, had achieved before. Suddenly, the question wasn't if Beau Greaves could challenge Lisa Ashton's legacy, it was how soon. Yet Ashton didn't flinch. While the media hailed Greaves as the future, Ashton reminded everyone she was still the present. Their clashes in 2023 and 2024 showcased that tension youth versus experience, instinct versus discipline. Every time Greaves threw a perfect leg, Ashton answered with a steady 15 darter of her own. It was the kind of rivalry that didn't need words. The darts did all the talking. Then came the 2025 Women's World Match Play, where the story hit its emotional peak. In the semi-final, Greaves faced Ashton, the apprentice-turned-challenger, against the master who had defined the era. The match was tense from the first throw. Greaves opened strong, punishing any loose dart, but Ashton's nerve held. When the final leg came, Lisa's experience shone. She edged out Beau 5-3 and went on to lift the trophy, proving that even at 54 years old, she could still beat the best in the world. That victory wasn't just another title, it was symbolic. The veteran had reminded the sport that legends don't fade quietly. They adapt, evolve, and fight. But what made this rivalry special wasn't the result, it was the respect. After the final dart landed, both players shared a moment that summed up the beauty of darts: mutual admiration across generations. Greaves had pushed Ashton harder than anyone since Sherock, and Ashton had responded with pure heart. In the months that followed, Greaves continued to dominate the women's series, racking up titles and breaking averages that seemed untouchable. But no matter how high she climbed, Ashton's shadow remained a constant reminder of where the path began. And while Beau Greaves represents the future, she also stands as living proof of Lisa Ashton's legacy. Because before Beau could dream of winning on that stage, Lisa had already shown it was possible. Yet long before Greaves or Sherock came along, Ashton had already fought her way through a different kind of battlefield, one built on experience, endurance, and the unrelenting veterans of the early 2010s. And among them, one name stood out above all the rest: Deta Hedman. If Lisa Ashton's career is a story of breaking barriers, then Deta Hedman is the rival who helped shape that story from the very beginning. Known as the Heart of Darts, Hedman was already a force long before Ashton's rise. With her calm demeanor and relentless consistency, she was the measuring stick for every woman entering the game. To beat Deta Hedman meant you belonged among the elite, and in 2014, Lisa Ashton did exactly that. The 2014 BDO Women's World Championship final was a turning point. Hedman was the favorite, a seasoned veteran chasing her first world crown. Ashton was the underdog, a name known in county circles but not yet in the wider darts world. The match was brutal. Leg after leg, neither player gave an inch. Hedman's scoring was sharp, Ashton's finishing was ruthless. The tension peaked at 2-2, last set, last leg, and that's when Ashton produced the darts of her life. A clean double 1-6 to seal the win, arms raised just once, barely a smile, the Lancashire Rose had arrived. That final didn't just earn Ashton her first world title, it started one of women's darts' most enduring rivalries. Over the next few years, Hedman and Ashton would meet repeatedly in World Trophy finals, county events, and ranking tournaments, with each match carrying the weight of their shared history. Sometimes Hedman got her revenge, other times Ashton reasserted her dominance, but every meeting had the same intensity, a clash of generations that defined the early 2010s. Their rivalry was built on mutual respect, but also fierce pride. Both women knew what they represented. Hedman was the face of the early women's tour, pioneering professionalism and dedication when few were watching. Ashton was the storm that followed proof that women's darts could reach world-class averages and compete with the men. In interviews, Ashton has often credited Hedman as one of the toughest competitors she's ever faced, praising her focus and longevity. And Hedman, in turn, has spoken about Ashton's ability to find another gear when the pressure peaks, a rare quality only true champions possess. Their matches weren't just contests, they were conversations between eras. The experienced trailblazer meeting the rising powerhouse, one reminding the other what it takes to stay at the top. And while the spotlight would later shift to younger rivals like Sherrock and Greaves, that foundational duel with Deta Hedman was where Ashton first learned what championship grit really meant. Because before you can become a legend, you have to beat one. And beating Deta Hedman was the moment Lisa Ashton proved she was ready to rule. But Hedman wasn't the only obstacle on her road to greatness. Across the board, another rival equally experienced, equally determined, was waiting for a shot at redemption. Her name was Anastasia Dobromyslova, and their battles would take Lisa Ashton to the edge of her own limits. Every champion has that one opponent who brings out their absolute best, the one whose mere presence turns an ordinary match into a final you never forget. For Lisa Ashton, that opponent was Anastasia Dobromyslova. The Russian trailblazer had already built a global reputation by the time Ashton's dominance began. A three-time BDO world champion, a soft-tip world title holder, and one of the few women ever to earn a PDC Tour Card before Ashton Anastasia was fearless. She wasn't intimidated by reputations, she built her own. Their story collided at the 2018 BDO Women's World Championship final, one of the most technically brilliant matches the tournament had ever seen. Ashton entered the final chasing her fourth world title, Dobromyslova chasing revenge. She'd been runner-up to Lisa before, and this time she came out firing, peppering the treble 20 with effortless rhythm, her precision drawing gasps from the crowd. But Ashton never blinked. Leg after leg, she matched Anastasia's pace, her doubles sharp as ever. When the last dart hit, it was Ashton's name on the trophy again, 3 to 1 inch sets and her legacy sealed. But ask anyone who watched that night, and they'll tell you, Anastasia pushed her every step of the way. What made this rivalry special was its purity. No bad blood, no drama, just two professionals at the height of their craft, forcing each other to be better. In many ways, Dobromyslova represented the bridge between eras, the international pioneer who proved women could compete anywhere, and Ashton, the domestic powerhouse who carried that standard forward. Their meetings became milestones, moments when fans could measure how far the women's game had evolved. Each time they shared the stage, averages rose, tension grew, and respect deepened. By the late 2010s, Both players had helped transform women's darts into something the sport could no longer ignore. And while their rivalry never had the spotlight of Ashton versus Sherrock or the generational intrigue of Ashton versus Greaves, it had something even rarer, two world champions pushing each other toward perfection. For Ashton, those battles with Dobromyslova were lessons in pressure and patience. Because when you're playing someone who's just as clinical, every dart matters, and that's exactly what sharpened Lisa into the champion she became. But after Anastasia, new names began to rise faster, younger, more unpredictable. And one of them would prove that even the greatest champions can be caught off guard. Her name was Mikuru Suzuki, and she would become the face of a new wave that even Lisa Ashton had to reckon with. In 2019, the women's darts world witnessed a moment that no one saw coming. Mikuru Suzuki, the quiet and composed Japanese star, stepped onto the lakeside stage for the 2019 BDO World Championship, her debut appearance, and proceeded to demolish the field. And in the final, she defeated none other than Lisa Ashton, 3-0, in a performance that stunned the sport. It wasn't just the scoreline, it was the way Suzuki played. Calm, efficient, relentless. Every checkout clinical, every visit timed perfectly. It was one of the cleanest debuts in World Championship history. For Ashton, that defeat was a shock, not because she underestimated Suzuki, but because it reminded her of something crucial. The game was evolving faster than ever. And that's the mark of a true champion, not just winning, but learning from every loss. Over the next few seasons, Suzuki continued to carve her own path, and Ashton met her again in the PDC Women's Series. Their matches were tighter, the margins smaller. Each time, Ashton showed she could still fight with the best of the new generation. But Suzuki wasn't the only fresh face testing the veterans' resolve. Players like Noah Lynn van Leuven, Eileen de Graaf, and Rhian O'Sullivan all entered the scene, each hungry to take their shot at the Lancashire Rose. The women's game had never been deeper, faster, or more competitive. And that, more than anything, speaks to Ashton's true impact. Every new star, every new name lighting up the rankings was, in some way, walking a trail she helped blaze. When you've been at the top as long as Ashton has, rivalries stop being personal. They become symbolic. Each match becomes a reflection of time, a reminder of how far the game has come and how much she's influenced it. Even now, in her 50s, Lisa Ashton remains a fixture in every conversation about women's darts, not just because of what she's won, but because of who she's faced and how she's faced them, with class, composure, and unshakable belief. From Hedman to Dobromyslova, from Sherrock to Greaves, from Suzuki to the next generation, every rivalry, every defeat, every victory has written a new line in her story. And as long as there's a stage and a dartboard, Lisa Ashton's name will echo through the sport, not as someone who hated her rivals, but as someone who needed them to become the legend she is today. Because in darts, rivalries don't define enemies, they define greatness. When you look back at the story of Lisa Ashton, it isn't just a tale of trophies or averages, it's the story of resilience. Every rival she's faced, from Deta Hedman's grit, to Anastasia's precision, to Sherrock's rise, to Greaves' brilliance, and Suzuki's calm destruction, each of them played a role in shaping the player we know today. Together, they built an era, because for every dart Lisa threw under pressure, there was someone on the other side pushing her to dig deeper, aim sharper, and stay hungrier than ever. That's what separates the greats from the rest, not just how they win, but how they respond when the sport evolves around them. Lisa Ashton has been called many things: a trailblazer, a pioneer, a legend. But maybe her greatest title is simpler than that: a fighter. A player who carried the weight of women's darts on her shoulders and never once complained about it. She was there when the cameras weren't. She was winning before there were sponsorships, headlines, or interviews. And when the spotlight finally arrived, she stood in it proudly, not for herself, but for every woman who ever dreamed of stepping onto that stage. Rivalries made her sharper, defeats made her stronger, victories made her timeless. And when the day comes that she finally puts down her darts, her impact won't fade, because every woman who steps up to the Oki now does so in a world she helped build. Lisa Ashton doesn't hate her rivals. She honors them by beating them, learning from them, and standing beside them in the history books. In the end, that's what true greatness looks like. Not just one player rising above the rest, but lifting the game itself to heights no one thought possible.